The nipples. They're the eyes of the heart. You want to do it or you want me to do it?
Tales from the ditch. You just quit stepping on my moment. Starring Sean Allen Moss, Seth J. Wildshoot, guest starring Tony Clark. Now, so Tony Clark is a friend from church. What do you think they should know about you? Where do you work, Tony? How long you lived in Reno? Why do you hang out with people like us?
I have no choice in that. No, I'm kidding. But I've lived in Reno basically my whole life. I was born in L.A., came to Reno, I don't know, 3 or 4. Been here ever since. I met you guys through church, obviously. But yeah, I don't know.
Dodgers or Giants?
There you go.
Well, I'm not much of a baseball fan.
Ah.
But I'm by
Oh,
default.
I thought that was basketball. Dang it.
We'll go Dodgers just because it's hometown.
L.A.?
Yeah, well, I'm an LA Kings fan. I do like hockey.
What part of L.A. were you born in?
Well, so it's this little place right in like LA County called Sylmar.
It's not Inglewood, which is always up to no good, allegedly.
We're always up to no good.
Sylmar, people don't really know about it because you just drive right through it. But,
Okay.
Yeah, that's where my life began, I guess.
And you were there until when?
I was only there for a couple of years. Family moved up to Reno because my mom and I guess you can call my dad, but the man that she was married to, basically got in a little bit of trouble, drugs, that sort of thing, and just had to leave, had to get out. And he had a brother that had a business up here, and so it was kind of one of those, my mom had to make a decision for me and my brother to get us out of some of that. And, I mean, obviously I was a baby. My brother's 7 years older than me, so he was old enough to kind of understand what was going on at the time. But she just had to make a decision to get us out, you know. And so she came to Reno, and it's kind of where my story begins, I guess.
Yeah, I moved here to Sparks when I was 4 or 5, and I consider myself a Renoite, essentially. Yeah. A lot of people would beg to differ, but pretty much all I can remember is from Reno and Sparks. So
you moved here from Big Bear, Sean?
Big Bear? I was
Really?
born in Santa Ana, as a matter of fact. So
Big Bear.
We're brothers.
Wait, my grandpa, he's passed away now. God rest his soul. But he has a cabin, or had a cabin.
Yeah.
In Big Bear.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to, but my family spent a lot of time in Big Bear.
Dude, it's so cool. It was it's like a ski town in the winter, but they don't often get snow.
Right.
So it's a ski town, hopefully.
Hopefully.
And I lived in this house. I can barely remember it. I remember more from what I see in pictures than I actually do.
Right.
But I slightly remember it. I remember there was no fences, there was no fences dividing houses or going around property lines. It was like you had a house.
That's how Tahoe was, yeah.
Yeah, and you just had a yard, but you couldn't tell where your yard ended and the other person's yard.
And
like behind us, there was nothing. It was like just forest. And I remember as 5 and
taking
under
a dump in
year
other
old,
people's yards.
I do remember that. Did I tell you that?
No, I was
you-
guessing based on your personality.
Yeah, I do have a strong memory of taking a dump in my neighbor's yard
Listen, who
when I was
hasn't?
first being
Okay,
trained.
let's just get real.
And but I remember wandering
enough.
off into the backyard, which became a forest, and I could go all the way to like the highway, and I would know when I'd hit the highway that I was too far, and I would go back. And I was like less than 5. There was wild donkeys just roaming around. It was really weird, and you could
Some
just
crazy asses.
you could feed some wild asses. You could just feed them like pine cones and carrots and stuff like that, and it was weird.
How is it I've known you this long and realized that some of how you grew up is so similar to Tahoe, where I could walk through a forest up a hill and there's the road, or I could go across the street 20 feet and you're in the forest. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure we committed a hate crime in Tahoe, but there are similarities in where we
Yeah,
live.
that's why we got along, I think.
I don't.
We were
why
both
have we
talking
not
about
talked
shared
about
experiences.
More? You lived in the forest. I did too. Let's not discuss this.
But I moved up here early when I was, I think, 4 or 5. You were in Tahoe until you were about 8, right? 9?
I moved up here around right before I turned 9, I think.
So that's
I
like
remember,
a different age.
Yeah, I was a little more like, my life's over. I should just die. I'm like, this whole city needs to burn.
Can we talk about taking a dump in your neighbor's house real quick? I just want to say,
Wait, in the house or in their yard?
I'm sorry, on their property, in their yard.
Okay, yeah.
Not in their
let's
house.
get down to brass taxes.
And this actually doesn't have to do with taking a dump, but I remember one of my earliest trauma situations was I was spending the night at my friend's house. This was like one of the first time I had ever gone to my friend's house to spend the night. And he had said, we were playing in his backyard, and I was like, I gotta pee. And peeing, saying I have to pee and going to the bathroom and stuff like that, that was kind of a new experience for me, I remember. Like, right. I had just recently maybe nailed this potty training thing. And I was like, I gotta pee, I have to go in the house. He was like, no, don't go in the house, just go pee over there in the corner of the backyard. And I was like, no problem, buddy. And so I went over there and started peeing, and it was a long process. You got to take your shirt all the way off and all those things when you're a kid.
Your pants down to your ankles.
Yeah, exactly. And you hold your shirt under your chin and everything.
Abs, I still do that.
And
that's why it's weird to go to bars with you.
Wait,
during the process of me disrobing, he goes and gets his mom and says, "Look, Sean's peeing in the backyard." And I got in trouble, and she had my mom come and pick me up and said I was no longer welcome at their house.
I did not do that. No.
Did you? No.
Were your clothes on when your mom got there?
They were. Oh. But the thing is, this is why I have trust issues with people, I feel like.
Absolutely.
That's why you have reasons. Trust issues, not the other stuff.
Well, this is one of the early.
My mom was driving by, and I was relieving myself in the Tahoe forest. And she drives by and goes, "Really, Seth?" and rolls down the window. And I get home and she goes, "Hey, nature boy." She goes, "If you walk 10 more feet, you're behind a tree." I'm all, "I know." She goes, "Whatever, I'm not here anyway." And just go. I was like, you are so defeated already in this marriage and being a mom. And I could tell Jeb was already stressing her out, my big brother. So Tony, whose lawn did you dump in, since apparently... So LA, you weren't in Inglewood, which is up to no good, right. Not Bay Area to Sacktown,
and back down.
What is it? It's... from Oakland to Sacktown, Bay Area and back down. And Tony isn't either. He doesn't want to be back down. He goes...
Yeah, so LA to Reno, and I don't know if there's a saying for that. No, I don't remember a yard, but I remember this one time they were doing construction up by the house, and they were actually putting up another water tower, and they didn't have the fence around it yet. And they had a bunch of towers. They had a scaffolding that went up, and we climbed up. It seemed pretty tall to me, but
like kindergarten cop.
Yeah, and we're probably like 20 feet up, and I just had this idea of what it would be like to hang off and take a dump from 20 feet in the air and just kind of see what kind of...
Oh, you did the FAD? Yeah. Whoa.
The mother of all bombs.
It's nerve-wracking when you're, squatting down, your thighs are shaking because they burn, and you're holding on to scaffolding so you don't slip off backwards.
Yeah, and there's a weird thing. I don't know. I'm sure this spans genders. But when you're high up, there's like a muscle thing happening where it's hard to be in a released state where you can create the free air dump, as we call it.
Yeah.
And that's actually a skill that I wish I learned at a younger age.
It's mind over matter. I was up there, I was committed, yes. People were watching, and I really had to go. So never mind. Go ahead. Tony, so you are a Renoite. Yes.
Essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So did you have an area that you grew up where there was a ditch-like area, kind of a open or wilderness area where you used to hang out?
Where there were stupid poor white kids and they throw rocks at each other. We'll accept that as well.
Yeah,
Tony goes, yeah, it's Reno.
It's Reno. Yeah, anywhere in Reno, really, you're going to get that.
That's true.
But I grew up in Golden Valley.
Okay.
So North Reno. Specifically in a little place called Raleigh Heights.
Oh, really?
Which I moved back to.
So you had plenty of mountains and trees and stuff behind you.
Wait, Raleigh Heights? Is that Golden Valley? Where is that?
Yeah, Golden Valley,
like
turn
Tallis
left.
And...
Oh, I've driven buses there. Woot woot.
Yeah. You're right up the street most of the time.
Yeah.
Basically.
Classic Seth.
So that's where I grew up in a little place called Raleigh Heights. And I guess our ditch would just be either the ballpark
or the penitentiary.
The penitentiary. So, because the ballpark butts up to the desert.
Yeah,
okay.
right.
And so there was this hill that we used to always sled down. The water towers that I just mentioned were right by the ballpark.
Fair
and so
enough.
there's a lot of things that we did right around there. We thought that we found a pond
Nice.
when we were riding our bikes in the desert, and we thought we were like super cool because it's right there at the base of Peavine. And we were exploring, and we thought, man, this is cool. We found a pond. Nobody else knows about this. And so we would go there like all summer and like take a dip, whatever. And one day, this girl that I liked had a birthday party, so I went to her house for her birthday party and realized that like down the street from her house, like the pavement stopped and it went into a dirt road. So I used to ride my bike everywhere. So when I was going home, I was like, man, I wonder where this dirt road goes. I just want to see. So I ride down the dirt road, and maybe 150 to 200 yards down the dirt road is this pond that we
you
found.
thought was so remote.
That we thought was like, this is crazy. Nobody knows about this. And it was like, turns out that everybody knows about it, and it's right down the street from.
And it was someone's backyard pool. And you just said, what's this fence thing? He just kicks down the fence. So.
That is the craziest thing about Nevada is you go in places where you're like, surely I'm the first person to tread on this ground ever. And then you find like a Coors Light can and a condom or something.
And it says
like that.
Sleepy was here, and you're like, dang it,
Sleepy.
It's always a Coors and a condom.
Yeah, it always is. It's weird.
Ugh.
I don't like it.
Of all, I'm sorry we dragged you into just this cesspool of pooping. And
this has been kind of a rough start, I guess, huh?
No.
I mean, not rough in. I mean, it's been
diarrhea
very
is
smooth.
always rough, Sean.
But I just mean, this has been an obscene start.
This is the funny
I didn't
thing.
expect it to go this way.
And this is the only time I'll quote him because I don't care. Dane Cook, even if you've won an Emmy, you have to have painful poops in life. It brings us all low.
That is true.
But here, let's go on to something fun, or
Sure.
less controversial, like genocide. So, Tony, growing up, you clearly, I assume, had the same experience as everyone else in America and were accepted by all cultures and groups. What was that like, being accepted by all cultures and groups, and everyone saying, you're one of us, and never having questions or problems? What's that like, Tony, with no questions or problems?
Man, that's...
Sponsored by Lies.
I dreamed about that.
Yeah.
I was like, man, it'd be so cool if people
You
would
watch
get me.
Full House, you go, look at those happy white people.
Yeah, look
huh?
at- why are all white people so happy?
Why they all live in San Francisco, 20 people in a house, and they pay like $500 for rent somehow?
Yeah, so actually so grew up in Raleigh Heights in a neighborhood that's for low income families, so it's a government assisted neighborhood.
I didn't realize that. In Raleigh Heights, there's one? Mm-hmm. Projects?
Yeah.
Huh.
So Essex Manor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the Reno Housing Authority.
Yeah.
Essex, eh?
So that's where I grew up, 720 Devon Drive. I don't live there anymore, so you can go knock on that door.
720!
But that's where I grew up, was in this little neighborhood, and it's a mixed neighborhood. So you had, whites, Hispanics, blacks, whatever. And I was stuck somewhere in the uncomfortable middle because I'm half white, half Hispanic. And so fitting in was kind of an impossible task, it seemed like, growing up, because if I went and hung out with the Hispanic kids, I was whitewashed. I didn't speak Spanish. And so that usually ended up in fights or just awkward exchanges. And then being half white, I'd try to all right, so maybe I'm supposed to hang out with like the white kids or whatever. And I would do that. And
Play tennis, golf, things
Yeah,
like that.
you know but that was somewhat better because I don't really know why it was better, but it seemed like I had a little bit more luck there. But even then, I was always the butt end of a joke because I was always the beaner, always the spick, always the Hispanic, the half-breed, the bastard, because my mom divorced when I was 9, or when I was 8 years old. And when she divorced, she decided to drop the bomb on me of the man that she's divorcing actually isn't my real father.
Jeez.
Wow.
Pulls out a picture and sits me down and says, "This is your real father," which makes more sense because my mom was married to like a white guy.
Right.
And I'm the only. My brother's a ginger. My mom's white. My dad up until that point was white, and then I'm brown. So obviously, I had some questions as to like. I mean, I noticed it even as a little kid, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. I noticed it. I never questioned it, but I noticed it.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, one of the earliest memories that my mom used to tell me about is when I was. I think it was. I don't know. Let's just say 5. I was little, and I could talk.
Okay.
And I come marching out of the bedroom, and I guess my mom had some people over, and she tells me that I walk out, and I go, "Mom, I figured it out." I mean, I just dropped this like, I got it. I figured it out. I was like, what'd you figure out? I said, "I know why my brother and I are 2 different colors." I said, "You drank white milk with my brother when you were pregnant, and you drank chocolate milk with me, and that's why I'm a different color." And my mom laughed and was just like, "Sure," and just left it at that.
That's good deduction, actually.
Yeah, as this like little kid. And so then, fast forward to when I was 8 and, my parents got divorced, and obviously divorce sucks, but it sucks even more when you find out that that's not your real father. So basically it just blew up my already existing identity crisis, right? So now I'm trying to figure out how to fit in the world. I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with my skin color, because I grew up in a time where it's like, well, if I was white with blonde hair, then I'd fit in and be like accepted. But that's not the case. And to top it off, I'm trying to figure all this out without a father.
Can we have a new policy that you tell kids who their real dad is?
Yeah.
I mean,
from the beginning.
This is like the second time this has happened, and I feel like it's a good policy. Just go, "Hey, this is your dad. That's not," as opposed to, That seems to be the answer a lot. Nah.
I can amen that.
How about we, or how about this? And this is from many reasons I say this. If you're married to someone, how about that's the only person you're having sex with? Is that
a good point.
Is that too bad of a standard to say that you only have sex with the person you're married to and not tell your kids their dad is someone else? I mean, is that
who's going to enforce this?
me?
Anger doxers.
Anger doxers,
Yes.
No,
please.
I will become president because
Sean,
Christianity has
please.
taught me
Thank you.
politicians will save us and they
Listen.
love us.
When I'm driving my truck for work, I get pumped thinking about that there could someday be a thing such as the anger doxers enforcing
Thank
justice.
you. Thank
There
you.
is. They're all the
Finally some support.
non-denom who have blogs. That's all this is.
No, Anger Doxers won't have blogs. They will have leather jackets. And it'll say Anger Doxer on the back.
Dude.
And they'll have a lot of rings for some reason.
Yeah. Can we get tattoos on our necks?
Yes.
Like right on the front?
Yes. Anger
Get them on
Doxers.
your lower back.
I don't... Yeah, I mean... if that's what you want.
I'm not gigging. I know who I am, okay? I will change it. I will change it all because I'm a special little snowflake. I've been special forever. So, Tony,
Yeah.
obviously this didn't affect your worldview or rock you at all. So, how has this affected your worldview or rocked you at all?
Well,
And I apologize, Sean, for bringing up such personal questions. He repents.
no, yeah, obviously it affected everything. The way I saw everything. Even now, I'm 28 years old. I've been married for 8 years. I have a 4-year-old son. And even now, it still affects me. I think God's finally got me to a place where he's given me insight to see that it's actually not all bad. Like, it can be a good thing. For instance, we were driving a couple weeks, so my wife and I, my son was in the back. We're driving. My son doesn't drive yet. He's 4.
I've cut him off in traffic. He is ruthless.
Yeah.
Your son
And
Does not take crap.
my wife started telling me a story of earlier that day. He was upset, and I guess he was even crying a little bit because he didn't know why he didn't look like Dad. So he was getting upset because his hair didn't look like mine, it wasn't dark, and his skin didn't look like mine. My son's 4 years old. And I guess my wife had to sit him down and affirm that I love him and things like that. And I don't know, it didn't catch me off guard, I guess, because everything he was saying was the same thing that I used to say when I was a little kid. Well, why don't I look like that, or why don't I have that skin color, or that eye color, or that whatever? Well, if I didn't look like this, then maybe my friends would make fun of me or whatever. I remember being a kid. Playing football, a little tackle football, and I remember I tackled this kid, and he gets up, because I tackled him a little hard, probably a little harder than I should have, I guess, but your kids, whatever. And he gets up, and he goes, what the hell, you stupid nigger? And I just looked at him like, what? I'm not even black, first of all. So
there's a couple things wrong.
Yeah, wrong slur, stupid.
Yeah. Well, I did say if you're going to disrespect me right. I don't know if that's.
It's like someone calling me a Korean slang. I'm like,
that doesn't.
Few nations off, D-bags.
But I mean, even from a kid, I couldn't help to see it because everybody else saw it too, and so it kind of made me angry. I mean, the fact that parents are divorced. My brother's 7 years older than me, so he wasn't really around much, so I couldn't even lean on him for any sort of, understanding or strength or just direction, anything like that, because he basically...
And you said he has red hair.
Yes, my brother is a ginger.
He maybe even somehow falls into different social crowds.
Well, because he has
absolutely.
A soul. Yeah,
so my brother and I are two different people, obviously. Not just because of skin color and height, but he is a ginger, and he got into the gang life pretty young, basically at around 16, probably.
Bloods?
I don't really know.
That was white
Here's what I remember. Here's my earliest memory of knowing that he was mixed up with the wrong crowd. It was the first time he went to prison, and he came out, and he had peckerwood tattoos on his knuckles with Woody the Woodpecker on the back of his hand. And as a kid, again, didn't really understand it, but as I grew older, I'm kind of like, okay, it's gang affiliation, and it's a white gang. I knew that much. And then I remember I went over to his house one time, and he had a swastika flag hanging up in his house.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'm old enough to know what a swastika is. And
There was a tumbling plus sign doing there. What's
is that a windmill in motion?
You Dutch? Yeah.
So, my whole worldview, basically my whole childhood, I didn't really know what to think. I was pissed off.
Yeah.
Especially when I started going to church. I started going to church as a teenager with my best friend, Josh. Shout out to Josh. He probably doesn't listen, but that's okay. Shout out anyway. So I used to stay the night at his house, and his mom made the deal that if I stayed the night on a Saturday, that I had to go to church on Sunday before she took me home, which was her way of just trying to get me to church. Which, fast forward now, it worked.
Yeah, that's a form of evangelism.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I don't knock it if it works, I guess. But so I started going to church and started hearing about this God and how He created the world and how He loves His creation and all this. And I'm thinking, really? You're supposed to love us as a father, yet you gave me a pretty crappy father, one that I don't know. And then my mom gets divorced, and I have a brother who's in and out of jail and in and out of prison, who's apparently, I'm not going to say a white supremacist, but definitely a little bit more leaning to that side. And I'm alone in this world trying to figure it all out by myself. Cool. You're a great God. And that was kind of my first initial reaction with it all, is I struggle with believing that a God created this world and put me in it, and yet somehow has my best interest.
Yeah, when things are so broken.
Everything up to that point, basically by the time, up to the point of 8 or 9 years old, it just failed. My whole world had been turned upside down. I went from having a family to not having a family. I went from having a father to just a single mom. My brother went off the deep end. My mom slipped into depression and turned to pills. And so my worldview basically turned into the world doesn't need me or like me, and I basically got to figure this thing out myself, and I will. Yeah, I learned pretty young on that crying doesn't really get you anywhere, so don't. Yeah. Just don't cry, don't complain, because
I'm sorry, I thought you said.
Oh
crime.
yeah, I thought you said crime too.
crime,
Oh yeah,
crying.
crying. Okay.
Either one.
Crime does. Hey, kids.
That was a little Dinglish. Tony speaks a little Dinglish. Did you
He
hear
speaks
that?
my language.
Crime.
Hey,
Sorry, public school.
no, hey, yo, you never apologize. It is their stupid colonizer language, okay? You say what you want. Big up to Brooklyn.
Come on,
All right.
brethren.
Come on, brethren. Tony,
Yeah.
nothing you do is wrong. Continue. I apologize.
So
Sean.
I'm actually really curious.
Is no one else hot? I'm
We
so
can edit
hot
this
right
out.
now.
It's kind of hot, but it's not as hot as it usually gets.
I mean, I've been hot my life so long.
We can edit this out if
No.
you want. I'm just curious. Are you on good terms with your brother now?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I haven't talked to him in 3-ish years.
Does it have anything to do with his views of?
A little bit. So I'll give my brother a little bit of credit. He did end up getting out of the gang life, as far as I know. I mean, again, I haven't talked to him in 3 years, but at least at that point he'd been away from it for a while. He seemed to have gotten through some of his addictions, as far as like drugs and stuff, because he was used pretty heavy for a long time. But obviously, when you're inundated with that kind of life, I don't think there's any way truly from it without Christ. I just don't think there is. And so there's repercussions even when you try to get away. He did end up getting married and have a kid, and that helped. It did a lot. But even in that, his identity still was what it was.
White guy who went to prison.
Yeah, exactly. The last time I remember going to his house, because he had bought this house over off of Wells, super nice area.
Yeah,
And,
beautiful.
Yeah.
I love the way that the garbage gets caught in the chain link fences over there, and it kind of glimmers at night.
You just, the smell was just so
Lovely. Yes.
intoxicating. Anyway, I go over to his house. Him and I are talking, and at this point, my brother and I have had a rough relationship, especially since we've both been adults. Basically, what it comes down to is I've never had much to respect about him at all, and obviously, I know that that's not all okay, but there's a lot tied into that. It's not that simple. But my brother also doesn't respect me as a human and just as a man, and he would always demean that first.
Wow.
So I remember going over to his house. He just got this house. He wanted to show me. He was excited, so I wanted to support him. Because even though my brother and I hate to say it like this, but we don't love each other. That's my brother, and I want to support him, and I definitely don't want to see him stuck in that lifestyle. And so I wanted to go all right, I'm going to check out his house. I'm going to go over there. But I knew one thing. I'm going over by myself first before I take my wife and my son. Because at this point in time, my son was only 2, maybe? A year? No, a year. Because if it was 3 years ago, he was about a year and a half or so. Anyway, he's little. So I go over there, and we're talking. We're on the front porch, and he's like, hey, I hope you don't mind. I got a couple homies coming over. And I'm like, hey, whatever, And here comes these 2 SUVs pulling up. And one's a black Chevy SUV with a red stripe right down the center. Now, I don't know a lot about a lot of things. But as soon as I saw the red stripe down the center, because it was obviously spray paint, I'm thinking, okay, if you don't know much about gangs, for whoever's listening, red kind of signifies a certain something. And my thoughts were affirmed when this guy gets out of his SUV and he's got a bright red sweater on with a big old swastika on the front. And I'm standing there with my brother, and I'm looking at my brother like, dude, I can't be here. And he tries to, oh no, it's cool. You're my brother. It's fine. It's cool. It's not like that. That's not what that means. I said, dude, come on. We're both grown men. Don't treat me like a little kid, like I'm stupid. I know what that means. I've lived enough life to understand a couple of things. So this dude gets out, And he doesn't really do anything. So I try to be cordial, like, all right, maybe he'll respect me a little bit because my brother's standing right here. So my brother tries introducing us. I go to shake his hand, and he like takes a step back and turns the other way and doesn't look at me.
Wow.
And really? I'm thinking, and on the inside,
believer,
dude, on the inside, I'm freaking out. I'm thinking, dude, I can't go in the house. I need to go home. I need to get out of here because I don't know what this dude's going to do. What if my brother walks away? All these things are running through my mind. So I pull my brother aside, and I just basically tell him, like, sorry, I can't be here. And he goes off. You're always judging me. You're always this, always that. Like, this is what I'm telling you. You always think you're better than me. And I'm looking at him like, dude, I'm trying to have a serious conversation with you right now. Come on. I know what this is. Stop treating me like this. And so we get in a fight.
Wow.
We don't talk. So we don't talk for a while. And, he had a Facebook. You gotta love it. The start of so many problems. Puts up on Facebook one day, hey, I got some sort of pills. If anybody wants them, hit me up. I'll sell them to you. I don't say a word. I'm like, all right, dude, you're in your 30s. You know how stupid that is. If a police officer sees that, you're done.
You do that stuff on Craigslist. That's how. Come on, man. Like, it's not amateur hour.
Well, I don't say a word, right? So at this time, I think I'm still at I'm at the church I was at before Stone. So at this time, I'm an elder. I'm a pastor at the church. So I have...
Yeah, no big deal. Just an elder, pastor.
Yeah, and so there's obviously...
little something.
So somehow my mom found out. And my mom calls. And then my mom just rips them up one side down the other. I didn't know. I'm at work. I don't know. And I get these text messages from my brother, him just ripping me a new one, cussing me out. And I'm at work, so I'm kind of only half reading them and thinking, all right, I'll check this out to work. I have no idea what's going on. And then I start getting text messages from people from the church, my associate pastor, like, hey, dude, what's going on? I'm thinking, the heck are we talking? And then my wife's calling me. My phone's going, oh, I'm like, what the heck? And my wife's like, you need to check your Facebook. Your brother just put some up there, and that's why everything's going crazy. Well, he decided to publicly on, social media as public as you can, to rip me up one side and down the other through all of this. And so I call him after work, like, dude, what's going on?
With no response from you, he just
starts going crazy. And basically saying that...
Directed towards you?
Directed towards me,
wow.
Going off.
Always a good decision.
Yeah, so, I call him, and I call him out, like, dude, what are you doing? I didn't say anything. I don't know how mom knows. You're a grown man. I'm a grown man. I don't play those games anymore.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. I didn't say that. Well, he's still going off. Well, come to find out, somebody in my family, I won't name their names, is a retired police officer, but at the time wasn't retired, and saw it. Officer Murph. Yeah. Officer Murph.
I thought it was O'Shaughnessy.
Murph O'Shaughnessy.
I'm so sick of
Murph
him.
Sees it and gets a hold of my mom, and that's how my mom found out. But he's still going off on me. So basically, I tell him, look, dude, if we can't talk about this, if you can't calm down, and he just goes off, you want to see me get thug, I'm going to come to your house, and your family's got it coming, and you better not let me get... And he starts threatening my family. I don't get mad. You guys know me. I'm a pretty calm dude.
You've only stabbed me once.
But I lost it. And my wife to this day still says that I'm wrong, and my wife is right most of the time, so I probably am. But I pretty much went off and disowned him and said that if you can't respect I or my family, I don't want you in my life. I don't need you in my life. Don't come back. I'm done.
Wow.
And I haven't talked to him in 3-ish years. So.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Gosh. So that was the last time that you've had contact with him.
That was the straw that broke the badger's back, huh?
Absolutely.
Ugh. Gosh.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
And that's just been. That's my family life. That's my home life. That's. I can remember. Just growing up, that's what it was. I can remember sitting at the kitchen table and my mom or my brother in the other room fighting, like fist to fist fighting, and the cops coming in and taking him away. And
gosh.
So, back to my worldview. Like, I didn't really have much faith in the world.
Yeah.
I didn't have much faith in humanity as being a good thing. And, yeah, it's not the home life that I wanted, obviously.
It's the one you got.
But it's the one I got.
Yeah.
Would you rather talk about abortion, something less controversial?
Sure.
Should we call your brother up? We got this phone technology
Wait,
now.
are we gonna do? When are we gonna call?
Right, yeah. I don't even have his number.
Wait, who are we calling?
I don't know. We could call anybody.
Do you want to call my wife?
We can if you want.
Do it.
You want to?
You better hit on her.
She's going to get mad at me for this, huh?
It's not a number.
No,
It's kind of weird.
She'll just get mad at you, not me.
Seth, put that away.
Hello?
Hey, you're on Tales from the Ditch.
Damn it, Seth.
Hey!
I almost didn't pick up because I was like, they're totally going to podcast me. But then I was like, if it's an emergency, I'm going to feel terrible that I ignored this call.
Well, does it at least make you feel better? That's like super important.
Is it important? What do you got for me?
Here's the thing.
I choose cake.
No! Why?
What a bomb.
Why would you do this to me? So many things. Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
All right, serious question, and then we'll let you go, and we'll bother
'Kay.
Troy or like leaving a rude voicemail or something.
Sounds good.
Okay. Growing up, not being full Korean or considered full white,
Yes.
did that ever cause any issues for you?
Yes.
Would you like to elaborate? Or just, we could talk about lunch for tomorrow or something. Like,
no.
hey, like
let's not
tacos,
do that.
you know? So did it
Always
ever cause
tacos.
issue? What was the term you told me you were given for not being full Korean?
Well, no. So two of my friends who were full Korean made fun of somebody in front of me because they were not full Korean. And then another person asked me if I was whitewashed, which does not mean that you're not full Korean. It just means that you have a lot of like white influence.
Yeah, I've been there.
That's the exact same thing that Tony Clark heard. The
Yep.
exact same
Yeah.
term.
Must have been the
Which-
same friends.
For me, I was confused because I'm like, I mean, I am half white, so I guess. I don't know.
Did you prove them wrong by marrying me? You're
yeah,
like, call me
that's all that
whitewashed.
was.
Let me marry this cave dweller.
Yeah, so I would say the issues didn't really come up, though, until I got older. Like, I don't think I really understood what I was doing or what I was dealing with, I guess, internally until I got older and started really understanding race and culture and that kind of stuff.
And until you and I had some uncomfortable conversations where I actually was willing to listen.
Yeah,
Are you with your best friend right now?
I am.
Okay, well, we're going to let you go. I'll see you at the next Black Lives Matter march, which your dad will be super happy I brought you to.
Yeah.
All right, I love you, babe.
Love you.
Bye.
But
Okay.
yes,
Hey, it
I
worked.
got it in. Mhm.
Well, because she's told me that story, because I remember when I first brought it up, she was like, yeah, I do have some thoughts on America and feelings. And before that, I was always like, well, that doesn't happen. So we didn't start talking about stuff like that till a few years in marriage. I want to ask Tony something else.
Sure.
Because Tony is not just a gangster rapper or a millionaire as we know him. He's a man.
There's depth to Tony.
He's like an onion.
He's not just beautiful, olive-colored skin.
He's not
Nice.
just this sassy Latino heartthrob.
Built. Pecs
So-
that go on for days. Thick with 2 C's.
Tony, I gotta ask you. So, you actually were partially, I don't know for how many years. I haven't talked to you about this a lot, but we've talked a little. Sean and I were part of the Charismatic movement.
Right.
Or some people say Pentecostal. So, what was, when you think of the now when you think Charismatic, I'm trying to think how to describe this for listeners. So, they're the people who have better worship and pray all the time. And sometimes theologically reformed. We don't always agree with them. There's definitely some stuff that goes off the rails, which I've seen happen in many denominations, to be fair.
Absolutely.
But there's stuff we can learn from them, stuff I was a part of that I appreciate. What was the good? What was the bad when you were in the Charismatic movement of stuff you saw?
Yeah, so the church that I went to was Charismatic. It's the only other church that I've actually been a part of other than Livingstone's. but specifically Pentecostal.
And that's the church that you were a pastor at, correct?
Yeah. I was for 3 years. I was a pastor and an elder over there.
Again, no big deal.
No. And I was young. I was really... So...
Like 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was way too much, way too soon.
They had me preach at 17, which I thought was a bit much, but go ahead.
Yeah, so... I wouldn't necessarily say that the worship's better. I think what people like or maybe are attracted to, as far as musical worship, I'll say.
And I'm comparing it to, here's the thing. I love the worship at our church. We actually have some phenomenal singers. In general, the stereotype is a lot of Reformed churches, there's some decent preaching and theology, but you don't feel a lot of, I don't know. People don't feel like there's a lot of amazing worship in general. That's the stereotype. Or there's not a lot of that emotional component, but a lot of the systematic or just, intellectual part. So in general, because Tony is right, sponsored by Kirk Cameron. Continue.
So when we could talk about why I left the church or not, but when we left that church, and we were looking for another one, and we were looking around, Stones was one of the ones, that we went to look at. I had a friend, I don't know if you guys know him, Mike. I realize their names.
Well, who is it?
Do a word that rhymes with his last name.
A season, and it's cold.
What the?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I get it.
I don't think he would care.
Is he a pastor?
No, and he's not really attending the church right now. Anyway. I'm calling you out. We're friends. It's okay. So anyway, we'll just leave it at a mic.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was rhymes with the season. So I was like...
No.
I was like...
Mike
Flummer?
Amazing?
Ming?
So anyways...
Bottom? Bottom? Mike Bottom?
He's still a good friend of mine, and I love him. But he's the one that invited me to Stones. And
okay.
So one of our first experiences with Stones was the worship, obviously. And so literally 1 week...
Stones is the Reformed church that you're now a part of.
That I'm now a part of.
Not the church that
I'm a
you
deacon,
were formerly
by the way, if anyone was wondering.
a pastor at. Yeah.
Right. And then the other church that I was a pastor at was a Pentecostal church. So 1 week I was at my old church, and then literally the next Sunday I was already looking for another church. I just didn't feel like I needed to waste any time because I wasn't like spiritually hurt. It was just there were some things that had happened that weren't going to get resolved, and I had to leave. So we left, my family and I, and we went to Stones, and I remember it being just a beautiful place, a loving place, and then the music started, and it wasn't bad, it was just different, because I was so used to this very emotional, high energy, passionate kind of not passionate, expressive, because I don't want to say that our worship right now isn't passionate, because it is, but Pentecostal or charismatic worship could be a little bit more expressive.
Yeah,
meaning,
more trumpets too.
Yeah, all
and
sorts
dancing with banners and tassels.
and flags and tambourines and the Jericho March, if you've never done that.
I've done it.
I've done it. I may have let it. I don't know. Anyway, so we came, and yeah, it threw us off because we were used to like going down to the front and like raising our hands and like singing and jumping and all this stuff, and then to go to Stones, it seemed, and I've learned that it's not, but at the time it seemed to be more reserved, and it almost just didn't make sense to my wife and I. So at first my wife was like, "No, I don't think this is the place," but going back to what Seth said, the doctrine was sound, the preaching was good, like everything else we loved. But because we were just in this awkward spot, I think we were looking for the wrong thing. So we church hopped it for a little bit, but ultimately stuck with Stones, and now have an understanding of what worship is and why Stones does it the way they do. And I'm glad we do it the way we do, and that it's not awkward, it's not weird, but if you're not used to it, it's completely different. So as far as worship goes, yeah, that was a huge, one of the bigger differences, I guess, from a charismatic church to a Reformed church.
Would you say charismatic churches, though, they pray a ton?
Yeah, so...
I'm sorry, they pray a lot, dude. They're like, we're going to pray before the prayer meeting.
Yeah, we prayed a half hour before every church event. So, every service. So, whether it was a Bible study on like a Tuesday or a service on Sunday.
And you have the second portion, and so do I. Others don't. You're blessed with
the more
extra
powerful,
spirit.
the second more
I'm a
powerful
level
portion.
3 Super Saiyan charismatic, all right?
Charismatic.
I am not...
I used to yell. I was a loud prayer and spoken tongues.
There you go.
Do you still speak in tongues?
Sometimes, actually, yeah, I still do, but not in the way that I used to. One of the reasons why I left the last church I was at was because like I basically called the senior pastor out on why we use tongues the way we do, because it didn't really match up with with what the Bible said, and so that was one of the points of many. And so now, like, there are times if I'm praying at home, or there's been a couple times at church where, I don't know, it's intimate, it's good, and I'm praying, and I'll start to pray in tongues still, but it's not as flashy and, like, in your face as maybe it would be in a charismatic church.
I only pray in
realize-
tongues when there's a microphone in front of me. That's the only time I do it. To make sure everyone's uncomfortable at the same
That's
time.
when you realize you should have bought a Honda.
Shit about
What about a Kia?
Yamaha.
It's super interesting because Seth and I have a pretty similar. Well, I have a pretty similar experience. I was what the church considered an elder at a charismatic church. In retrospect, I don't consider myself an elder in that charismatic church, but I would have been disqualified on many fronts. But it's super interesting because there's a huge difference in your expectations as an elder or a pastor. One of the expectations is that you are consistently inviting the Holy Spirit, or making way for the Holy Spirit, or creating an environment that the Holy Spirit would fill.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so much pressure. Like trying to be... Yeah, and confusing. Because it's like, oh my gosh, if I don't... Like, it's almost like saying to some degree, I know that charismatic people aren't saying this, or purposely saying this.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Holy Spirit needs help to be able to show up.
Right.
And how can I provide that help? And that's, especially like Seth was saying, as 16, 17, 18-year-olds, that's super confusing to figure out how to do.
Yeah.
Like
it creates an emotionalism. That if you're not emotionally feeling the Spirit, then the Spirit isn't with you.
Right, exactly.
Which is
And then
confusing.
you have to murder people. It's just so... Do you know how uncomfortable it is? Like, you have to look them in the eyes. Like, no, don't kill me. And then you kill them. And then, oh, did I get caught? I don't know. And you're in the desert, and your arms are tired, and you're digging. And it's like all rocks. All rocks.
Is that being slain in the Spirit? Or is that...
Oh, that's being slain in the Seth. And then they... Well, and then you bury them.
Slain in the Seth. New podcast name, Slain in the Seth.
You bury them, and you're driving away going, did I leave something of mine back there?
Yeah, a little piece of your soul.
Because the cops, but that's been dead for a long time.
No, Seth left the shovel back there. That's what
I have this, what do you call it? No, there's a biblical term, sociopath. So I don't feel things. So, yeah, it's just weird. I mean, at a certain point you go, am I burying in the same spot? That's awkward. I mean... I don't know. Is there really a right way to bury people that's not, like, uncomfortable emotion? Because even when they do the and look up at you, you're having to look at that. It's
weird. There's, like, a difference in the way you close people's eyes after they're dead. If they were a friend, you slowly use your whole hand and you go over their eyes, and then when your hand passes down their face, their eyes are closed. If you don't like them, you just take 2 fingers and a peace sign and jab them in the eyes and pull their eyelids down.
I just do one eye so it looks like they're winking at me, and I draw on their eyebrows.
Surprised eyebrows.
Surprise.
They're like, I didn't see this coming.
I didn't see this coming. I'm all, they never do.
Closed eyes, surprised eyebrows.
I put
Not
like,
awkward.
so I put gold coins, but instead of on their eyes, I put them on their nipples. Because I feel those are the eyes of the chest.
Into your heart.
Look, alright, look, hold on. We've all committed murder. Let's not act like Pastor Seth is talking about crime here. Okay?
The nipples are the eyes of the heart. It's the most beautiful sentiment I've ever heard.
Which, by the way, if you look up some stuff I've read from Boston, there are ways to get away with murder, folks, and I have read on them. Speaking of which, who had a live journal? No? No one? Okay.
I remember your live journal.
Here's a crime I committed. Hope no one reads this. I'll only tag these people. The cops won't think. Do you know how far the cops are behind on technology? They're all,
my God.
Oh, we tried 2 password things. We can't get in.
Yeah, his MySpace is not up to date. They could not keep up with the fact that you moved to LiveJournal and then Facebook.
LiveJournal had so many things of like, here's where we committed a crime. Here's who it was in the address.
You blocked me from your LiveJournal at one point, I think, right?
Because I felt ashamed. You know what, Tony? You know how many times you get sick of people being like, you're breaking the law and you hate God. I'm like, well, yeah, but what can I do? I'm a scoundrel. I'm a scamp. Let's talk.
I still think it's so funny. The nipples. They're the eyes of the heart.
The eyes of the heart. That's what your nipples take in. That's what your heart will reflect.
That might be my first tattoo. I'm not.
Look, the thing is, so Tony, so you left that. You're at a Reformed church.
Yeah.
You obviously have the right theology now, and everyone else is dumb and wrong, as
Clearly,
the Bible tells us to take care of it.
Yes.
That sums it up.
How do you, because I've asked people this before, how do you feel about the current state of the church in America? Are we all united? Are we bowing down at the golden calf of politics? Is Seth right, but no one will listen to him or give him a book deal? Should I write a fictional novel, which really I've been putting on the shelf and just stalling on, quite frankly? Or are grilled cheese sandwiches better if they're a little burnt? I mean, what do you think about the state of the church in America?
It's not,
I'm going to do my taxes while you're talking.
yeah, that's a big question.
Is it? All right. This is what grinds my gears. I tell people, I ask them a question, they go, oh, that's kind of a loaded topic. Then unload it. They're all, I can't say that over text. I'm all, yeah, you can. Take 5 minutes.
Does that burn your biscuits?
That burns my, I don't need a thesis, Bill.
All right.
Write a text message and you can type out all stuff. Cause I hear it all the time. Oh, that's a loaded topic. I go, cause you're scared of people's opinions saying something that's wrong. White people, get together.
So, I don't know.
I am sick of these demon Democrats who turn to lizards and don't buy my supplements with their demon eyes. AlexJones.com. That chubby pot-smoking Republican. Alt-right. How about alt-left? Control-delete. Get out of here. Oh, Tony, I'm sorry. You were talking.
So, obviously I can't speak
for every Christian.
For every Christian, right? I can't speak, not even at a national level, but maybe at a local level, like just in Reno. I mean, the only place that I've gone to church is in Reno, and that's only 2 different places. So, is the church where it should be? No.
This podcast is over. We're done. We are done.
Well,
ugh.
Okay, so back to... We could take it to something where, was I guess maybe last year, a few months ago, whatever, when we were preaching a lot about, racial reconciliation, things like that. When we have what are supposed to be Christian brothers and sisters leaving the church because we talked about race for like a couple weeks, sorry, not really satisfied with that. Like, you're supposed to call me brother. We're supposed to be Christians, inheriting the same kingdom, but you're going to walk out when we mention race.
And specifically racial reconciliation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the topic was when all of the...
Black people are humans. No thanks. They walk out.
Well,
of the church.
yeah, it was all the upstart of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Black kids were getting killed by police officers.
Yeah.
I think specifically our church kind of said, here's where you can stand biblically.
Yeah.
And people said, oh, this is a political move. I refuse to be a part of this discussion. And bowed
Which
out.
sucks.
Yeah.
Because through that time, I received a lot of healing. Because I still maybe live out of some of the pain of growing up, of being called certain things or be treated a certain way. But here, I finally go to a church where our pastor is bold enough to say, you are loved. Despite your skin color, despite what the world thinks about you, God loves you. And God called you to be here. So here I am thinking like, man, like, that's the first time in a church building I've heard that it's not about my skin color, but God still loves me. And then I turn around and there's like people saying, oh, that's too much, I'm leaving. Wow.
God actually, you're crazy that new heaven, new earth will see multiple skin colors, languages, everything. So it's not a, well, we know you have this, we'll try to ignore it. It's no. Your skin color is intentional, sovereignly ordained, loved, appreciated, valued versus... Here's the thing I find funny. All right. Here, let me be real. So, people go, leave your culture at the door. And they ignore that so many churches, whether they like it or not, are enforcing a culture. They say leave your culture at the door. They go, well, leave your culture. What they really mean is, well, these cultures that we think are ethnic culture, hip-hop, or all this, they go, well, that's, culture. White people don't have a culture. That's garbage. There's Irish, there's German, there's Anglo-Saxon. When you play a certain type of music, generally at these churches, it's what's popular within white contemporary adult culture in evangelicalism. And we play it and we go, well, you leave your culture at the door. You're instilling a culture. The way you talk, the way you do community, the way, all these things that are cultural norms, you say, well, we're not giving into a culture because we think white isn't a culture. We think since we're the majority and we've been here a bit after we stole from Native Americans, we've been here a bit. We go, well, we don't have a culture because white is just this bland mayonnaise. You got, do you know how many countries there are for white? You got Irish, Scottish, British, Norwegian, Danish, Dutch, all these, like there is a culture within whiteness. And it's not that whiteness is inherently, oh, well, they need to go help. No, I'm not saying that, but we do this stuff of, hey, leave your black culture at the door. Mm-hmm. It's not about culture. It's not about ethnicity. Mm-hmm. Well, you're playing music that's generally popular at white churches. You're doing this that's generally popular at white churches. Whether you like it or not, culture's got to come in. Why? Because we are cultural people. We have backgrounds. We have experiences. We have languages. We come in. And diversity is not something to be frightened of. And it's not supposed to be divisive. When it says there's neither Jew nor Greek, boom, 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 goes through a whole thing. It's not to say those don't matter. It's to say this doesn't define your salvation. It's not your core identity. It's not all you are. It's not the main thing. And it shouldn't be a wall separate us. Nowhere does it say it's evil or doesn't exist. If it didn't exist, they wouldn't even bring it up. It's just not any longer a wall that separates us. Now it's something we celebrate. Look at God's diversity. Look at God's palette that when he painted, he didn't just have mayo white or off shell. I guess eggshell would be us or chartreuse, like for some people. It literally is. Look at God's palette that he had multiple colors and in his sovereignty made this diversity. And it's not all we are. So if you're black, blackness isn't your core identity, but it's not nothing anyway. When people say, well, I don't see color. Oh, you don't stop at red lights? Liar. If you run red lights, I might believe you.
That is the most insensitive thing.
I don't see color. And they quote Galatians. I go, oh, do you not see gender either? Because it says neither male nor female. Do you go, oh, I don't know if I married a dude or a girl. I don't see gender. Shut up. You see wieners. If they got wiener, come on. Like, you don't see, they use Galatians and go, I don't see race. Well, then you don't see gender either because it says neither male nor female. If we're going to use that verse in that context, we have to say, okay, fine, then we don't see gender either. But no one does that. We always do gender distinctions, but we don't do ethnic distinctions of no. We celebrate them. Just don't let them be a wall. Don't let them be your core identity. Our core identity is Christ. I can look at my wife and go, yeah, she's a woman, but it's not less. It's celebrated.
Right.
It's beautiful.
Two things to back up what you're saying. in Revelation in the New Jerusalem, we see the tree of life has different fruits. Not just one fruit.
Yeah.
It has like 12 fruits.
Give me them fruits.
12 different fruits, maybe?
I want to say.
And
Sure.
it's all the time?
You're the historical pre-mill. I almost said
And
Dispy.
the stones in all of the architecture are all different kinds of stones.
Because there's jasper, there's...
Carnelian, I think.
Carbuncle?
Carbuncle.
I know. There's different colors. There's
Ragnarok.
There's emerald.
Yeah, there's
there
all
is
kinds
different
of weird
colors.
stuff. So it's
Different
not,
colors.
So my point
Where
is,
my emerald homies at?
there's already a diversity set up in just the structure and what's the word for like plants? Your dad. What's your dad's degree?
Worthless. Oh, he's in agriculture. He's an
Is he a
Aggie. He
botanist?
said.
An Aggie.
Aggie.
There's a different
I don't know what it
word
was.
that I'm
Botanist?
picking up. Oh yeah, botany. There's a diversity in botany. I'm going to edit that so it makes me sound
What's
smart.
the butt doctor?
Proctology.
Yeah, my dad's a proctologist.
A Uranus.
He's a pain in the
So
ass.
heaven, or the New Jerusalem, the redeemed earth is set up with diversity just in its architecture and
Right.
botany. It's not just the people. It starts in the very foundation of things, which is amazing. The other thing I wanted to say in response to what you were saying, that I can't remember, is, when, like, you consider people groups being represented in America, like, how small would you say the diversity is in Northern Nevada? It's probably not as small as the global
We're not
diversity.
Berkeley, I'll tell you that much.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have, I think we have 19 black people that live in Reno.
They all go to our church, yeah.
Yeah, or something like that. I mean, the diversity is really crazy.
It's like
But
2%
even when we're
African-American, I think.
planting churches that are, we're planting churches that are essentially 20 blocks away from the existing home church. The culture is so different. And the appeal has to go out to the people who are in the culture where the church is. And sometimes it's really offensive when we come in and we say, hey, we want to change this area with the gospel. And we can occasionally say, I want to change this area by creating an opportunity for you people to meet my people's lifestyle. Right? And I'm not saying we do
What
that
do you
on
mean by
purpose.
No, it's...
So, like,
how often have we planted and there's already existing small Baptist church there?
Yeah.
Who's been fighting for 60 years?
Exactly.
And we go, well, you're not affecting it. And they go, I've been here 60 years faithfully.
exactly.
And I'm not saying
that's what I'm
church
saying,
planting is bad, but it's
No.
the mentality, I think, sometimes.
Because sometimes you can say, like we say, this is a hypothetical situation. This isn't actually happening. But say we say, hey, we want to hit this area of Reno that is primarily a Latino community.
Right.
Sometimes what we bring in with that is we say, hey, what we want is to expose you to the gospel, but the end result is that you would become more like us and not park cars on the lawn or not do these things that we have stereotypically
All
determined that
cultural
your
things,
culture
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And that is incorrect.
I want to park my car on the lawn, but
That
I feel
is-
guilty because Sean goes, oh, what are you doing?
But that's what I mean. That's idolatrous.
Yeah.
Right.
But occasionally, when you plant a church, specifically in an urban area, but I guess this could happen anywhere. When you plant a church, sometimes you come in saying, we want to share our awesome lifestyle with you as much as we want to share the gospel.
This
with you.
happened in China. So here's the thing. We're supposed to bring them Christ, not whiteness.
Exactly.
China, they'd have colonialists come in and say, well, here's Jesus and Britain. They don't need Britain. They need Jesus. What? Have them have their cities. Have them have their languages. Because God is not going to go, oh, get away from me. You did not know King George.
Right. Exactly.
It's Christ. But they actually saw us and they started doing mission work different because they saw they're bringing culture with them of going, I mean, imagine this. Even in America, East Coast comes to LA and goes, well, here's Christ and East Coast. They go, we don't want it. And they don't need it. And if there's a wall there that doesn't need to be there, Don't bring it. Don't add more. There's already barriers to the gospel. Their heart, their sin, their pride. Right. Don't add cultural ones. No, just bring them Christ. You go, well, their culture. I don't give a crap about their culture. At the fiery throne, the white hot throne of the Messiah King warrior who saved us, he's not going to look at if Ethiopians act like they were Scottish. Did they know the dying son who rose and lives again? That's it. And we've seen this so many times. It's like, here's whiteness. No, we're bringing them Christness. We're bringing them Christology, not whiteology. I don't care if they listen to your stupid creed. Creed, you suck. You're not good. You're supposed to have a boxing match. What happened to that? The band. Not all creeds. The band creed. There's creeds I like. The band creed, he was supposed to have a boxing match with the Limp Bizkit guy.
Yeah, what happened to that?
He punked out.
Who did?
Both of them.
Oh, really?
And I'm just saying, we're not bringing whiteness. We don't go, hey, this area. No, we bring them Christ. And maybe do this. Do a walk around before you get there. What churches have already been faithful here? And I talk to them. I'm all for planting church, but go have a talk of like, hey, I don't know this hood. You've lived here 60 years. You're a faithful pastor. Let's talk.
Yeah, but that won't happen because you have to get uncomfortable to do that.
Baklava!
In order to go into a culture to bring the gospel, you have to learn the culture, right? Because even to communicate, you have to understand the culture that you're communicating to. Even in a city, you're not going to go from North Reno to South Reno and preach the same way. You just won't. And if you're talking about specifically preaching to like different ethnicities or bringing the gospel to different ethnicities, you got to learn that culture. And sometimes that means you have to be uncomfortable because there are going to be things that you learn to do that you're not used to that you'll kind of have to enter into in order to communicate and earn that trust. And I think that's why we have, like what Seth was saying earlier, like, you know, we'll preach the gospel, but basically it could be like a white hipster gospel, not just the gospel entering into a culture, accepting and affirming the good things that specific culture does have.
Yes.
Which is why I'm saying that to say that you're colorblind, that's so insensitive. Because what you're saying is you don't see that person in the uniqueness that Christ made them to be.
Yes.
And so the Bible teaches us to be hospitable, meaning you're going to let people into your home. You're going to invite people into your most vulnerable state in order to show them love and to reach
Only
out to
people
them.
you're familiar with, though, right?
Oh.
Only people that
Is Sean making you
culturally
uncomfortable? Because I will totally call my liberal friends to complain about him.
No, I mean...
Huffington Post!
No, it's the other, right? Not the like, but
Where's
the
your
other.
beer, Tony?
I agree.
No, your other ones.
There's one in the fridge.
Which
I
fridge?
totally agree. You see Paul calling Peter
Whatever.
out for that. Paul says...
Peter sucks.
Paul says, hey, Pope Peter, get it together. You're only hanging out with the Jews and making these exceptions for the Jews. Like, there's more people than just the Jews. Get it together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that an accurate Sean translation?
And Paul goes, no, I'm not going to cuss. I was going to cuss. But
Yeah, so
I'd love to stay here.
I just want to say that there's a danger sometimes when we are trying to be missional, and sometimes our definition of missional includes our culture. And we say, hey, and clearly we did this, 200 years ago when we decided to bring Christ to the different nations. Or even more than 200 years ago, I guess the Crusades would be considered a similar thing. That is such a dangerous perspective. Like you said, Seth, we're bringing Christ to everybody, not our culture to everybody. And even in such a small place as Reno, it's the biggest little city in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Even in a place like that, you have, let's say, 10 Reno subcultures. I'm just estimating. Even when you're spanning the boundaries of those subcultures, you have to be sensitive to the difference of those subcultures.
Right.
Because you're not trying to bring your culture to them. You're trying to bring Christ to them. And that's so important.
Did the Israelites, I wonder if they looked at the Greeks and were like, why aren't you singing our national anthem for Jews?
I bet they did, but I don't think it was
And
okay.
the Greeks said, I don't speak Hebrew.
Well, that's
Because
just...
they were racist. They go, we've been conquered you. No, it was the Romans. Right? Wait, hold on.
Well, that's basically the whole.
Romans.
Wait, what language did the Romans speak? Romanian?
Roman.
Romanov? No, wait. Okay, so they always say in Greek. What language did Romans speak?
I believe they spoke Aramaic in Roman-dominated Hebrew area.
Why is so much of it in Greek if the Romans spoke Aramaic?
That's a good question. Probably because the
Why
Greeks
didn't I go
don't have
seminary? You know what? I don't care. Guess what? I was evangelizing, nerds.
Tony,
Sorry
you're
were-
a pastor. Answer the question.
Sorry you were in a class
Uh,
with probably Preston
Well,
Sprinkle.
Basically, that's the modern day God and country theology. I hate it. Because just like what you were getting at is, so we want to preach, America as a Christian nation, which is,
Heresy.
thank you. I was going to say malarkey. That's better. Because, I mean, think about it. If we have Christian brothers in any other nation, Korea, Brazil, wherever, and they're also preached God and country, we're preaching division, which will and then incite a form of division, racism, a prejudice. And so we have to be careful. Like you said, we have to be sensitive to certain cultural norms and hope that we're not preaching a...
Latin and Greek were the official languages of the Roman Empire.
Huh.
But other languages were important regionally. Good to have the white guy interrupt. Because we need my voice more. I'm sorry, Tony. I apologize for Sean interrupting you. This was Sean. It was also Sean who said the bad words.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head, though, Tony. This is Sean speaking. Yeah, we sometimes confuse our country with Christendom.
What?
And that's never been the case, like, all throughout history. Even Israel, which you could make the best case, was the closest nation to be Christendom. Even then, it wasn't. It's
Right.
I mean, that's wild.
They were cutting up concubines. Sliced them up. Like Velveeta cheese. Sponsored by Velveeta cheese. Slices up just like a concubine.
It's almost like, you know what I think is a brilliant movie? Borat. Do you guys remember that movie?
I think I remember something of Borat.
King of the castle, king of the castle.
King of the Castle. Yeah, so the thing is about that movie, it's obscene, and probably most people shouldn't watch it if you haven't seen it yet.
I wasn't saved.
Maverick, watch it.
But the thing is, I really do feel like this shows the absolute hypocrisy of trying to establish a culture in a different culture, as opposed to what we would truly say, like establishing Christ in another culture.
Right.
It's like such a different thing. Christianity isn't a culture. Christianity is like a, what would you say? Belief? Philosophy? Praxeology?
Christianity is a complete revolution of all that you are, so it goes higher than culture. It comes in, so it's not less than culture, but certainly more. That it comes in and radically changes all that you are. Your ethnicity, your views, how you love, how you speak, how you talk, and even your culture takes it to inform it of what it is, its rightful place. So it's almost above. It takes all the spheres of society, of race, art, science, everything, and doesn't get rid of them and doesn't submit to them. Instead tells you their rightful place, purpose, and role, and informs. It comes in. I would compare it to this. If you take a cup of water and put some food coloring in, the food coloring, you put a drop or so, and it's not necessarily more or less. But, there was a bug right in my pants. Gosh. Hate you. Hate you!
I just bug sprayed. I'm surprised.
Thanks,
How can
Trump.
they live?
So, I mean...
So, it comes in and
It's always
informs
nice to have
it
the white
all.
person cut off the
Yeah.
brown person.
It
my
comes
life
in.
story.
It comes in because Tony, me, you, or Shay as an African American, it comes in and goes, all right, I'm not saying this stuff doesn't matter. Now I'm showing you its proper place, its influence and talk. So,
Yeah.
so it isn't necessarily in itself a culture. It's a kingdom. It is the gospel is this whole new movement. It is an existence. And within existence, you have culture, you have thought, you have speaking, you have feelings. It's above it. And it just speaks into it where you go, okay, now I see culture and I'm going to determine within that what I let define me, what I conform to, what I allow, what I affirm. And no longer, here's the thing it does. Culture, usually you go, okay, well, that's a part of me. All right. The gospel and the kingdom looks and goes, okay, that's a part of your experience and kind of what you felt and seen and talked about and been immersed in. But it's no longer your core identity. It's something you participate in, maybe walk through, and that has spoken into your person, being molded into the guy you were when you met God, when you had this collision with the gospel with God.
Right.
But it's no longer who you are. It's an aspect in this huge big picture, because you've gone from, well, I'm black, I'm white, well, I'm Republican, I'm Democrat too. No, this is a new existence, this whole new world, and I'm informing it. And right now that world hasn't been realized. So now it's just going to speak into, all right, as you navigate these earthly spheres of culture, this earthly existence that doesn't fully see this new creation, this new reality, how do you navigate this reality? Because that's what we're doing. As we're speaking this reality, we're not saying this is it. We're not saying, all right, this is the finished picture. As we speak in the culture, it's not just to win an argument or show Ben Shapiro has a weird haircut. It's to come in and say, no, we're giving you little glimpses of what's going to be fully realized until this new existence comes in that has one culture. And that one culture is we have a king, we have a kingdom, we reign, and the culture is love, the culture is meekness, the culture is humility, and you see beauty. And there's no more sin or dissent. So I say it's weird. It's not less than culture, but culture comes under this umbrella of a new existence. So it just, I don't know.
There's
Does that
still
make
diversity.
sense?
Yeah.
Of course. There's diversity in plants, diversity in everything. But humans, we go, nope. I don't see color. Yeah. Even though I stop at red and green lights and look at sunrises and take stupid pictures of my food at Whole Foods. While the person with dreads gives me some kale. Kale, you suck. You're a work of the devil.
Yeah, true.
I'm done.
Tony, you had something to say before Seth dropped the mic.
Yeah, no. So kind of just to back up what he's saying a little bit is when we receive, well, when we have the gospel, when we become Christian, our identity is no longer of this world. Our identity is in Christ. It's within the gospel. And the worldly things, the history of our life is no longer identity, but it's an explanation of who we are. It becomes a part of our testimony. It becomes a part of our explanation of how God came to us and changed us. Yeah. My brokenness, my pain, the things that I went through, although there's a lot of scarring from it, it doesn't define me.
Yeah.
Because I'm a new creation. I'm defined by Christ. Mm-hmm. I'm no longer, in a sense, a citizen of this world, but a citizen of heaven. If anything, I'm the alien, right? By the world standards, I don't belong.
That's true. But
God still has me here, maybe to do work. And I think that sometimes that's what helps. That is basically the healing factor of the things that I've gone through. Is the fact that I'm a citizen, I'm an heir of Christ, I'm a citizen of heaven, and that I'm a new creation, and that my identity is within a Father who paid the ultimate price for me. And that's how I've been able to say, all right, like, my life hasn't necessarily been a cakewalk, and it hasn't necessarily been what I wanted or dreamed of, but I'm loved by Christ. And I know that the pain and the suffering in this world that I still face today, just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean that people still don't look at me different for being Hispanic or white or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I still face that, but it doesn't cut me to the core like it used to, because I don't know. It's almost as if, like, knowing that someday this will all be put to death just gives me this healing and hope. Where I don't hate people. It's changed me not to hate my enemy, but to love my enemy. Like, I don't want somebody who comes up to me and just yells out a bunch of racial slurs to stay thinking that way. I want them to know Christ and to not treat me like that.
Right.
But I used to think, screw that guy. You know, if I got hit by a bus, I wouldn't care. You know, if that guy got stabbed, well, he deserved it. Probably keep his mouth shut and probably wouldn't happen. You know, but
right.
That's not, God has transformed the way I think, the way I love, the way I approach people. And it's still a struggle because some of the racism, as I've explained, like, and not even just racism, just prejudice, different things, you know, improper representations of the gospel even. I think I told you guys a story of my grandma, who, I don't blame her. I think she grew up in a time where racism was a lot more extreme than maybe what I've experienced.
Yeah, same with my grandma.
Okay, maybe a place that's a little bit more south. And so I remember right when I was getting ready to get married, I was engaged. I had already sent some pictures to my grandma. She came up to visit, and we had this conversation. And she started talking to me about church, because she would talk to me sometimes about church and whatever. And she started, like, the conversation started to get awkward, where she started to talk about, like, the Old Testament and tribes not mixing with these tribes and not marrying other tribes, things like that. And
Ezra 8 stuff.
Yeah, and she had been taught that basically meant that whites should stay with whites, you know, blacks should stay with blacks, Hispanics should stay with Hispanics, and that there shouldn't be, like, an interracial marriage. My wife is blue-eyed, blonde-haired, and white-skinned, so she was saying this to me, and I just remember thinking, like, even then I knew enough about the Bible to know, like, well, that's not what that's saying. But I don't blame her. Like even in her last dying breath, we had conversations about the Bible, about the gospel, about Christ. I believe that she's saved, but I just believe that she had very poor teaching, and that somewhere along the line somebody gave some piss poor doctrine to her and just didn't teach her well. And because of that, because we allow culture to influence the gospel instead of gospel to influence culture, we get these false teachings like that.
Yeah.
But that's stuff that I had to put up with, you know. And so just, I don't know, just trying to back up with Seth, you know, what Seth was saying just a minute ago. But
well, from your experience as somebody who has darker skin, browner skin maybe, I guess you could say.
Darker's fine.
But
earth tones.
More earth tone skin, and you've had a family that was very diverse and didn't necessarily have the same color of skin. I'm curious.
Yeah.
If you were at a barbecue and somebody said cheeseburger or hamburger, which would you pick?
Definitely the cheeseburger.
Cake or pie?
That's such a rough question.
It really isn't if you love the gospel tone.
Exactly.
My wife has betrayed me. I am betrayed!
Here's the thing.
Tear my clothes, ass cloth! Ah!
Ice cream's the real MVP. All right.
No, cake or
Seth
pie?
hates ice cream.
You know, I'm not a dessert guy. I don't.
Fair enough.
Chicago pizza, New York pizza.
New York.
Ha ha! Take
Yes!
that, wife!
Yes! So you like the thinner crust.
I do like the thinner crust. I like
You
to
don't like
fold it a little bit.
a
When I have to use a fork and a knife and maybe even a spoon to eat my pizza, that's just too much. He is so upset.
That's just Ozzy Osbourne. What? You just...
Okay, so
You're out of control! You need to get out of here!
So I threw a water bottle and the side split, and I wanted to show Sean, and the way I showed him was splashing him.
Right on the most thermogenically sensitive area of my body.
Crotch? Is it crotch?
It was the crotch.
Oh.
Seth leaked on Sean.
You
That's
drink
what I said.
Michelob Ultra. That's all I'm
Don't
going to say.
judge
You like
me.
Caddyshack.
I'm on a diet.
You
Don't
like
judge me.
Caddyshack.
American.
Get out of here.
This
Go.
entire podcast is derailed. It started with Seth. It wasn't with the kids scaring us.
Get out of here!
You tell him, son.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn!
Get out of here!
That was our boys. Hey, that's not just mine.
Yeah,
that is your seed.
I should have had Luke over here too.
Oh, yeah.
My wife would have lost.
Where,
her
Greg?
That was-
Where are
yeah.
you on this sound guy? You
Yeah,
don't
Greg,
exist.
keep the kids at bay.
He goes,
Thanks a lot.
I exist. Whatever.
You had
Feel
two
the burn.
jobs. You had two jobs.
Yeah.
We are
What if you
in
said that to people?
a recording studio.
You only
right
had
now.
2 jobs.
We are in a recording studio filled with water right now. Shaw's distraught. He is weeping. My son kicked open the door. He kicked it. Tony doesn't know what to say.
This is anarchy.
And
love it.
my testosterone is going down every year. I'm just older. What are we doing?
Parting words. Did you have anything else you wanted to say before our sons take over this studio?
They're coming in.
They are coming.
Always choose cheese. And
Word up.
despite who you are, just know this. Christ loves you. People are sinful. And just know that.
We'll edit that part out. We'll just say whites are sinful. Whites are love. Maverick, go to bed.
Sponsored by Elon Musk's child torpedo.
You know, I hope he does get to the moon. I know I don't say this enough, but good for him.
Oh, good.
You know what? And if he does, will they have health care?
Welcome to Tales from the Ditch, Tony.
Please email talesfromtheditch@gmail.com if you would like to tell Sean why he's wrong or why cake is the worst thing to happen since socialism.
If you want to subscribe in some different manner, go
I'm
to
just done.
talesfromtheditch.download.
I don't care. Who cares?
And
What are we doing? There's water at my ankles.
happy 4th of July.
We're past that,
We're
Sean.
way past that.
Sean,
Nipples are the eyes to the heart.
Nipples are the eyes of the heart. Zip
Ready?
it up!
Zip it out!
Holy.
All right, you little monsters.
Oh my
What
God.
are you doing?